Hey everybody, Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com for all things Vespa. Check us out on the web, ScooterWest.com. So if you own something like this, of course we got all the parts to help you out restore this. So here we have a 1958 Vespa VB1. So starting in 1957 is when these were introduced. It's the last of the Mohicans, the last of the era of just a standard run-of-the-mill 150cc 3-speed Vespa with the wide body, because in '59 they went to the VBA and just the standard narrow configuration for the motor, which carried all the way to the PX, you know, for 50, 60 years essentially. So this was a pretty rare model in the regard that it was only essentially sold for about 2 years. They sold about 100,000 of these throughout the world. It's just a basic 150, probably goes, my guess, top speed is about 45 miles an hour with the 3-speed. They're piston ported. They call this the carbon box. They have the headlight up high, not the faro basso. So this one has some tasteful modifications to it. It's got the Penasco Deloro 22 millimeter round slide carburetor. It's also got a Penasco kit, and it's got a classic twin pipe exhaust. I don't remember the name of it, but it performs pretty good despite being a 3-speed classic engine. There's not like a resto mod where somebody put a P200E 200cc modern, or not modern like an automatic, but modern style engine. So it's got the classic 8-inch tires. If you're looking for something higher end than this, of course you go right to the VS4 and VS5 at that era in 1958, 57, 59. They had the VS5, that was the top trim level of the wide body Vespa. This is just the run-of-the-mill Vespa, but pretty cool because it's a pretty short-lived model. It's got the aluminum handlebars. It's got that classic wide body shape to it. The single saddle and the rack. There's been some tasteful modifications added, like the spare tire in the center. That looks really good. The front rack, that's like a modern one from a PX FA Italia rack. It's not anything that special in my idea, but obviously it suits the owner's needs. Starts right up. It's got quite a bit of compression with that Penasco kit. Started up for everybody. You got the classic fuel tap. Probably don't need to choke it. It's kind of a warm day. And it's got a lot of compression, so you got to really get into these. Like just like that, I couldn't get through it. There we go. So the classic 2-stroke sound, but it's definitely a little zingier than what it was in its stock form. So this scooter is used as a daily driver. The restoration's by no means perfect, but it's just a clean looking bike. I mean, it's got the oil and grease on it, kind of what you expect if you're going to actually use a Vespa, and not use it as like a garage trophy as like some of my Vespas. So the way these cowls worked is they're actually on a hinge. It's probably could use a little oil on there. It's got the Penasco electronic ignition setup, which makes it much more reliable, why it started so easy. But you can see it's got the fan cover right there. The carburetor's in the box. They got this extra part so you can pull the whole cylinder off and service it. It's got the classic style Kickstarter, the 3-speed selector box right there. And they were just engineered in a very different way versus the post 59 Vespas. There's just so many parts of these. You know, these things probably cost a fortune to make. You know, they definitely were starting to figure out the economies and the scale of economies once they re-engineered the motor to the rotary valve motor that was found on the VBA and later Vespa GLs and so on. But these just have so many pieces, you know, different steel pieces that are spot welded or however, whatever the process was when they built them. The engine actually separates from the swing arm. That was something that was only found on these wide body Vespas, just engineered very differently than the Vespas that were pretty much a year later than this model Vespa here. So I thought it'd be something I'd like to share with everybody. I've done a couple classic retrospect videos in the past with either my own, Alex the owner's Vespas, or customers' Vespas, and I thought the VB1 is something that's a little unique. It's not as desirable as something like a Vespa GS, but it's pretty unique being that it was such a short model run of the last of the wide body Vespas. So pretty much this Vespa kind of shows more in common with the original Vespa from 1946. You know, they pretty much had about 12 years of a tremendous amount of progression in the Vespa line. And then by 1959, when the VBA, VBB, GL, and so on came out, they didn't really have much progression other than, you know, they upped the motors to from 150, eventually the Rally 180 to Rally 200. Those were some of the top dog models that replaced the Super Sport and the GS. But there wasn't much progression in the engineering of the Vespa after 1959. Thanks for watching. This is Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com. I'll see you on the next one.